Hello, everyone. We're back. As we record, Trevor, it is Six Nations Eve, which is one of my favourite times of the year. So I'm looking forward to what comes up over the next couple of days. But more importantly, Trevor, on this pod, we have another excellent chat with another business owner.
Do you know, David, I can't wait. You know, the rugby, well, we know what's going to happen there, so you better get your hanky out now. But listen, we've got the delightful and just completely charming Mr. Neil Cameron, who's Managing Director of Carmichael and Baxter Groundworks up there in Bonnie, Scotland. A very, very strong business relationship of our guild member, Charlie Wilson. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be good. So,
Charlie Wilson, just so everyone's aware, is a member of our Guild of Business Finance Professionals, and the company name, Trevor?
Asset and General Finance. But do you know what Charlie is as well? He is actually a farmer as well. We're going to hear young Neil talk eloquently about his relationship and his gratefulness for having that relationship. But look, let's get straight down to business. Those regular listeners will know that we've been looking for transaction. Remember the word, transaction.
Let's get the drum roll in, because we have decided that each month, as we do in our industry on other platforms, is to publicise case study, for want of a better word, but is to
Agreed.
Is to put out a transaction of the month, which is typically it's typically working with a business where we've helped to raise finance, and there's obviously a story behind that. So, what have you got?
Well, I've got a belter, actually. We've had a few come in. Anyway, look, we're going to fly off down to sunny Kent, the Garden of England, and we're going to be talking about Amanda, Nick, double world record holder, mentioned in previous podcasts, and Jane Hill. So between them, they are Corporate Leasing and Finance. I'll come back to them in a second. So they were involved with an existing customer that came to them and said, look, you know, we've got around about £50,000 of fixtures and fittings, and they are in the hospitality sector. The customer was the landlord and owned the property freehold and the equipment. But the tenant who's running the place wanted to lease them. So they operate as a pub restaurant, and in this case, the tenant becomes the customer, and our introducing customer, the landlord, becomes the supplier. So rather unusual. So the tenant been trading less than 12 months, so relatively new starts, and the assets were valued back a couple of years ago, and the tenant is a homeowner, but with limited equity. Anyway, after delving in some detail, plenty of discussions, both the customer and the supplier, which, if we recall, was the landlord, that our dear friends at Corporate Leasing Finance managed to secure an agreement to lend for the full amount that they needed. The landlord got his money and kept the tenant. The tenant was able to spread the costs of the equipment over a period of about 3 years, and everybody was happy. You know, we were at a do the other day, weren't we, Dave? We were talking about the banks not particularly being interested in the S of the SME marketplace. Yeah. What's the definition of that? The actual S of the SME is probably less than 50 employees, and the micro side of that is probably less than 9 employees, would you believe? According to the Department of Work and Trade, and this is what I've had a look into, 95% plus of businesses in the UK today would be classified as an SME.
You know, we talk about it a lot on this podcast, the small businesses, and you're right. As you'll hear in our conversation with Neil coming up, we talk about the banks and how they weren't helpful for them in the early stages. And you're right, the small businesses that we are focusing on mostly, and we've spoken about how the government see them as the lifeblood, and we talk about how they want to see the economy kick-started. They want to see growth, don't we all, Trev? And
yes,
we've got to get it going, and hopefully with us in town, I don't mean you and me, but with guild members and lenders working together, we can hopefully get this financing world working in the way that it should be working.
I agree. I don't want to bang on about it, but we met HSBC the other day. We had that very same conversation, didn't we? And, the guys and girls in the guild are, they're amazing at getting to the nitty gritty. But, Dave, for everyone they get to, how many business owners are slipping through the net? How many don't know about it? How many, as I said to a couple of guys and girls when I was there, if the bank says no, what business owner's doing, mate?
Yeah. Honestly, we could have a 2-hour podcast on that topic. Talking of which, Trevor, I think we should flag up that, unfortunately, due to technical problems, the recording that we had with Neil, which we did actually yesterday, due to technical problems at my end, it's not as good as we'd hoped for. So bear with that sound. It's not bad, but it's not as good as we like. So bear that in mind.
Dave, if the heart's there, the sentiment's there, I'm sure everybody will live with it. Hey, listen, a couple of things I need to update you with before we crack into Neil. Mugs are going out.
I know.
The mugs are going out.
The mug fest.
It is an absolute mug fest. If you happen to be on LinkedIn, have a tune in. Anybody that hasn't got a mug yet, we have a very long short list, as I said last time. A few more to go out, but
yes.
if you spot one, very simply repost where you spot it and let us know you've spotted it. And happy days. Right, shall we crack on?
Good. Yeah, I just want something else. We keep asking for feedback. It's really important. It's great that people share the podcast. Thank you, and it's good that we get the odd comment back. Thank you. We did get some constructive criticism the other day, Trev.
You mentioned that in my show.
And again, we don't care what you want to call us. We don't care what your feedback is, and as long as it's constructive, good or bad. And yes, Richard from Axminster, probably best that we leave it there. His feedback was that you and I sound like a couple of DJs on a radio show, and perhaps bearing in mind that we're trying to get this out to business owners, it's a bit too Dave and Trev.
Chummy.
Bit too chummy, a bit of Dave and Trev, and maybe we should get to the point a bit quicker, i.e., if we are talking about business matters, let's get to the point, leave the Dave and Trev show to one side. Again, is criticism that we consider to be worthy, because we'll have a chat about that and see if that's something we need to change. But as someone said on our steering committee, who we listened to, that this podcast is about entertainment, isn't it? If we don't keep people listening, then we failed in our ability to put the message across. But like I said, thank you, Richard, to having the balls to coming back to us with some criticism on what he thinks we should do to perhaps make the podcast a bit more, I don't know, easy on the ear for some of the business owners. But nonetheless, it's criticism that we'll take seriously and consider for future podcasts. But let me know what you think, everyone. This show is not for us. It's for small businesses, and we're just trying to do our best.
Do you know what, Dave? We're going to let the listeners into a little secret here. We've already called it with Neil. I think you're right, Rich. It's trying to get the balance, though, isn't it? I mean, I'm not going to be funny here. I'm going to say it as I feel. Finance, the world of finance, dull as bloody dishwater. Dave, listen, you're right. Criticism, constructive.
Yeah.
Get to the point.
Yep. Like it, mate. I like it.
Speaking of which, should we just get to the point now?
Sure. Well, look, let's settle back then, as they say, Trev. And before we go into the chat with our good friend Neil, if you could please, we'll keep repeating it. Follow us, comment, subscribe on Spotify, whatever platform you can. Extremely grateful for that. But should we get on with it and you introduce our next guest?
I will. I'm delighted. This is a very, very good customer of our dear colleague and friend in the guild, Charlie Wilson, up there at Asset General Finance in Bonnie, Scotland. And it was our absolute pleasure and delight to meet, to talk about Neil's journey, and to talk about how important it was that he was able to just put Charlie in a seat and say, Charlie, you do what you need to do for me in the business, and I can concentrate on running the business, and that will do for me. So enjoy Neil Cameron, bean counter that didn't really fancy counting beans, hod carrier, construction man, now managing director of a very successful business, Carmichael and Baxter Groundworks, up there in Cooper in Fife. Folks, enjoy it. It's a belter. Neil, hello. How are you?
I'm well, Trevor. Thank you. Yes. Yes, in sunny in Scotland, which is a very rare occurrence, actually. So you've caught me on a good day.
Excellent. So, look, let's get down to it. Perhaps the best place to start with, and it's always a good place to start from the beginning without, going on too much. Just give us a brief sort of synopsis, a brief chat on your background and where you've come from and where you've got to, really.
Yeah. So this is almost a funny story. So I'm actually a chartered accountant to trade. And after 7 years with a practicing firm, I went to the partners and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And after they picked themselves off the floor, they were like, pardon? So I left that industry. But whilst I was studying, I worked with a local builder and I was literally mixing cement, wheelbarrowing blocks, bricks, loved it. So I went back to him before I handed my notice in and said, would you be interested in taking me back? And he was quite shocked also. Everybody thought I was mad. Turns out it's one of the best decisions I've ever done. So I went back to said gentleman and worked with him for a period. And then with an inspiring mind, I thought I could probably work for myself here. So I decided to go out on my own. Then I got subcontracted into Carmichael and Baxter. So that was Peter and Alan. We're running a Groundworks company up in Cooper. I got subcontracted into them. After a couple of months, Peter came to me and said, do you fancy coming in? And I was like, yeah, I says, that's, it's local. I like the two of them. They had a good setup. And I thought, yeah. And that really opened the doors really for this business going forward. I joined them in about 2012.
Okay.
I became a director and shareholder shortly after that.
You'd obviously impressed them with your brick wheelbarrowing and mixing up concrete.
Maybe it was my hairstyle, who knows? But yeah. So we did that, and then we took over another business. So there's now two businesses we have. Peter runs one and I run the Groundworks one. We started off reasonably small, and we're now, between the two businesses, we've got about 75 staff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we've just taken on HR full-time. We've got full-time health and safety. It's just really growing. It's really booming.
I'll tell you what, in all my career, I don't know about you, Dave, but as soon as the HR people came on board, we knew we were in trouble.
I remember those days vividly. And just going back, Neil, to the story. So I left school, wanted to be an engineer. And after about 5 years, a bit like you, I was kind of not feeling the vibe. And after all that study and all that sort of, background work that you do to become that engineer, and I did definitely like the word engineer, and from school, leaving school, didn't know what I wanted to do, but that was definitely sounded exciting. And I enjoyed it, but yeah, it just didn't tickle me in the morning, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I went into finance by complete default, which I won't bore you about now, but I know many other people that have gone to university, and it's, I think, more so today than before, but people are leaving uni, aren't they, now, with some great degrees in one marketplace or another, but inevitably may not necessarily stay in that particular sector and divert because of something that's happened in their lives. And I quite like that story. I always say to people, life has a way of changing its path, and that's often driven by the individual himself. So going back to your story, Neil, you obviously had this amazing experience, or whatever the experience was that made you feel like this is something that I really wanted to do. And you made that decision, because not a lot of people do they? They see the security blanket around being a chartered accountant and perhaps stay on that sort of, security pathway where you've obviously had this gut feel and gone, no, I don't want to do this, but I'm definitely liking this construction and groundworking sector.
It's a lot more fluid now, and I think it's a lot better for it, because I'm not going to blow my own trumpet because I'm not very good at that, but everybody thought it was a pretty bolshy move when I did that, because I had this degree, I had my professional qualifications, I was on a good salary, I had a great career prospect, and to just throw that in the bin, essentially, everybody was like, wow, you actually did it.
But I think you said something really interesting, Neil. You enjoyed it. You enjoyed what you were doing, and that's the key.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, someone far more intelligent than me, what's the phrase? If you enjoy what you do for a living, you never work in your life, you know, or whatever. And I think that is the key, that passion, that enjoyment, and all the rest of it. Okay.
Well, listen, just quickly, sorry as things come into my head now, I kind of talk, so bear with me.
That's okay.
But we did have, Trevor, didn't we? We had another business owner on with us just before Christmas, a chap called Martin Lewis. Very similar story, wasn't he, Trevor? He got a degree in music. He was a very talented double bass player. And I don't know if you've listened to it, but it's worth listening to. And at his actual graduation day, he had this business idea. So the idea of not going into music came to him on his actual graduation day. So there's another example of someone that saw an idea or an opportunity and decided, I'm not going to stick to what I've just studied for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm going to go down this road. And like your story, Neil, Martin's story is equally as exciting, and the journey that he's had is amazing. But again, like your journey, if it wasn't for his meeting with a business finance professional at the beginning, goodness only knows how that business would have developed, had it have developed at all. So I'll be quite interesting to hear with your background. And I know that you and Charlie had a friendship beforehand, but there was still a relationship there, wasn't there? One that with his finance capabilities and his obviously professional background in this sector, you felt comfortable working with him, and he's clearly being a great advocate to what it is that you've been up to in terms of growth and development.
Yeah, so Charlie comes from farming stock, as we call it in Scotland. I grew up on a farm myself. So we had a kind of similar background story. He lived along the road from me as well, so we had a personal friendship as well. When I went self-employed, we kind of dabbled together in the farming community, went in and did some sort of manual labour, but we both got scunnered with the labour rates and stuff back then, because, you know, labour was cheap back then. It didn't bear fruit a lot. So we kind of went separate paths, but we've remained good friends ever since. And Charlie he's becoming he's kind of my go-to guy now. We're quite fortunate that we don't need a lot of finance, but what we do finance a lot of is vans and plant. So there was this whole situation a while back around COVID times where you couldn't get vans. There was like a semiconductor.
I remember.
That went, and vans you could get a transit van pretty quick. Then they went 6 months, 9 months, a year.
Yeah.
You know, how can you run a business when you're trying to order the van a year in advance? So Charlie, bless him, took that kind of on his show. It's not just finance. So he started by providing finance, but he now sources vans. And because of his background and his practical thinking, I just phone him up and say, Charlie, I've got a couple of guys starting, I need this. And he just goes away, he comes back, and he's got me in the finance, he's got me in the van. And to be honest, it's a seamless process, and it lets me get on with what I need to be getting on with.
Love it. Listen, what a success, though. I mean, the three of you involved in running 2 businesses. You started from relatively humble beginning with a number of people, a small number. What did you say? 75 on the payroll now?
Yep. I'm growing. Yep.
Wow.
We're currently advertising for about another 6 positions. And,
really?
Yeah. So hence why we got HR in, because, that's a full-time job in itself. Really.
Oh, isn't it just? Look, Dave and I are politics agnostic, but I am going to ask you because it is relevant. Have you concerns? Have you thoughts? Increases in minimum wages, increases in national insurance, all that good quality stuff that everybody's loving coming over the horizon. Is that going to have an impact on the business?
Absolutely. I mean, we're kind of a living wage employer anyway, so none of our staff are on minimum wage. But what we tend to find is, and the reason we've kind of got around it is through growth. If we were stagnant, we'd be kind of going backwards.
Yeah.
Because of the volume. So our labour rate goes up. The customers come back and say, oh, that's a bit expensive. We need it a bit cheaper. So you kind of get squeezed in the middle.
Sure.
But because of the growth, you're out, it's kind of economies of scale almost. You always ride that out, but it's difficult.
And how's that growth happened? As if you actively gone out and and I hate the word, but marketed the business, or is it word of mouth, or is it reputation? How are you continuing to build the business?
So twofold, really. So bizarrely, we don't advertise at all. So the Groundworks side is really word of mouth. Somebody's had a previous job done, go to these guys. And to be honest, that's the best form of advertising you could get.
For sure.
So we get a lot of that. We get a lot of repeat customers. The other business is involved with the military. So we do the civils for that company, and we've become almost an all trades to the military. So because they like what we do, they can deal with directors. So rather than going through a board of people, Peter and I can still answer to powers that be. They really like that. So we've now got joiners, plumbers, electricians. So we've kind of became an all trades. So that's the second element of growth. And obviously defence budget's going up. Well, we all know what kind of world we're in now. It's which is great from my point of view. So the employer's NI and all that stuff is a massive effect. We've not even felt the effect yet because April is going to kick us as well.
And I think you're not alone there, Neil. I mean, Dave obviously speaks to a lot of businesses, probably more than I do, but I get the feeling, and it's horrible to say it, but it's almost like, well, we'll deal with that when we get there.
I mean, what do you do? You can't hide from it. You've just got to adapt to it. And as a business owner, I think that's one of the best skills a business owner has.
Absolutely.
Is adaptability. Because, when you're at the top of the tree, all you usually get is problems. So you're just dealing with these problems. And hence why Charlie came in. That took one of those problems away. So he can deal with that side of things, which lets me get on with other things. So
this is exactly what we hear from businesses that people like myself work with. It's having that confidence of knowing that whether it's myself, whether it's Charlie, whether it's any business finance professional, you've got that number in your phone. So whether you're on the way to work or you're on the way, you get into your bed or whatever time of the day it is. I know Charlie works similar to me. The phone's always on. You know where he is. You can drop him a message and pretty quickly he's going to be on the phone to you and we'll be getting on with what it is that you need. And you're quite right. And Trevor and I talk about it a lot. Whatever business it is, the people at the top, the managing directors like yourself, aren't necessarily the most skillful when it comes to finance. And for obvious reasons, we know what the banks do, or more to the point, don't do. And therefore, because the bank manager is no longer in the high street, I mean, Trevor and I were at a British Business Bank event yesterday, and it was spoken about quite a bit with other business owners there. They just don't have anyone, because there is no signposting to the Charlies of this world. And once you have been signposted to the Charlies of this world, and obviously he or she has demonstrated their worth, then that's it. You're pretty much just a bit like your doctor or your dentist or whatever it is. That person's reliable.
Yeah, don't mention hairdressers.
But you know what I mean? The parallel is you have the peace of mind of knowing that you've got someone like Charlie at the end of the phone, gets on and does what he does best, and you get on and do what you do best, and you don't have to worry about anything else. That's the perfect partnership as far as I'm concerned.
It is. And that's really where you can grow, because, it's really easy to get thrown down a rabbit hole and waste time and stuff.
Yeah,
it's not really generating,
Yeah. Do you know what? I think you're in an interesting stage, Neil. You're now 75 heads, give or take. You're probably, we talked about the recruitment of HR. You're probably at this stage where most people now still know most people in the business.
Yeah.
But as you now start moving and pushing forward, that's going to go a little bit, isn't it?
Right.
You're going to have a business where not everybody does now know everybody else. What are you doing to prepare for that? I mean, I'm assuming you're still foraging ahead, and what are the plans, if I can ask you so pointedly, for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah. So we bought this building we're in just now. And we thought this is our go-to place. We're now outgrowing it. There's not enough spaces in the car park. So we're looking at another depot, essentially, over north of Dundee. And that comes with, and I can't say too much of it, that comes with a waste carrier's license, which means,
right, okay.
which means that we can, so rather than getting subcontractor in to take away all our rubble and bring back all our hardcore, we can do this ourselves. So that is another avenue.
Good. Adding another string to your bow.
It's opening another door. So there's really exciting things, but you're right. To go back to your point, David, the phone is a blessing and a curse. It's probably the best. It's the best piece of equipment I've got in my arsenal, and the same for my business directors. But yeah, it can become a curse when you're on holiday and your wife's saying to you, "Will you put that down?" Business is business, and we all it makes it work.
It is, Neil, and as Trevor said, I've spoken to thousands of businesses over my 30-odd year career. If it was easy, everyone would do it. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. Being a business owner is tough. It takes balls and a bit of luck. But certainly, and especially at the moment, with businesses struggling, and I use the word carefully because I know not every business is struggling, but certainly at the small business end, especially in areas like retail and hospitality, et cetera, this, going back to what the topic's all about today, this gaining access to finance is gold dust. And unfortunately, and it happened recently, and Trevor knows the story, I got speaking to a small business, but unfortunately, by the time he'd got to me, it was too late. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do to help him raise the finance that was needed. And I'm afraid to say, I think that's just an example of many small businesses, especially at the moment, just having that support mechanism of how to gain access to finance for all the reasons. It hasn't been more relevant than it has been today.
Now, listen, Mr. Cameron, a little bit of extracurriculars, a bit like Dave and I. You swing the old golf club from time to time, a bit of clay pigeon shooting. Yeah. Walking, eating out. We love eating out, Dave, don't we? Meeting up with friends. Are you a member of a club, or are you just a social player on the old golf front?
So I was a member of St Andrews. Everyone's heard of
yes. Yeah, right. Call it off now. Call it off. No, that's the end of it.
I'm lucky enough to I've had one round at St Andrews. I'll never forget it. And actually, I didn't play too bad.
They won't forget you either.
And the weather was lovely as well. So I was really lucky.
I went to school in St Andrews. So when I was about 12, 13 years old, there was guys going to American scholarships, playing off scratch and stuff.
Yeah, okay. What about this old clay pigeon shooting malarkey then?
Yeah, so there's a customer who is a friend as well, and he has a clay pigeon shoot not far from here. So we use it as a bit of a corporate day. So we buy 6 days a year and we take customers out.
Nice.
And it's really good.
I've been on a few of those. They are good, aren't they?
Really good.
They're a good social thing. Yeah, it's a great day. I've been lucky enough to be on a few down this neck of the woods. But
well, if you're never up in Scotland, give us a shout and we'll get you sorted out.
I told you I had a feeling, Dave, this boy would be all right. He's salt of the earth.
I could actually,
he's got all the.
I can actually see a really good corporate day here. We start with 9 holes in the morning, then we do a bit of clay pigeon shooting in the afternoon. Then we walk to the pub to have some eating out, and then we meet up with friends at the back end.
Yeah. Sold.
Yeah, that's sold. Good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I think, I'm just conscious of the time here. Neil, was there anything that you wanted to add?
I mean, there's one thing about it. It's like a little quip, actually. We could just add it.
Yeah.
My previous boss said to me, and it's something that stuck with me for a long time. He said to me, the banks will only lend you money when you can prove to them you don't need it.
Yeah, he's right.
I kind of chuckled at first, and I thought, well, listen, and do you know what? He is so right.
And he's picked up on something there that Dave and I have known for years. It's not only that, Neil, it's the fact many people consider borrowing money too late.
It used to be years ago, you went and spoke to a bank manager and you could sit with him and you could ask the deal and you could say yes or no. Nowadays, it's all computer led.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be disheartened if anyone's wanting to start business. I wouldn't be disheartened by that because there are other avenues, particularly through guys like yourselves. Where you can access this finance.
Yes.
So, it might seem like you're not getting anywhere, but if you can get one of these guys on the guild and become a partnership with them, they take a lot of pain out and they can help.
There you go.
Do you know what? Neil is our third business owner we've had. And do you know what is common to all of them? Dave, you were for Joe Hughes at MaxFly. Duncan Payne for Martin Lewis with the graduation gowns. And Charlie now for Neil. And all three of the business owners have gone how important. There's almost like it's almost making the hairs of my arm stand up. It's almost beyond a business relationship, isn't it? I mean, you said something just a minute ago, Neil. You know, a customer who's a good friend of mine. Yeah. It sounds to me, wishing to put words in your mouth, Charlie's a bloody good friend of you as well, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah, and it's about that relationship, because if you can get, as you mentioned it earlier, Trevor, you know, if you can get a job which you enjoy, you never work a day in your life. If you can get people around you that have common interests and want to help you, they become friends through natural. Yeah, you know, you don't have to work at it. It just kind of.
Yeah, and I think, Neil, you know, some of the words you just used a minute ago, it's you know, it's not something that we need to advertise, because at the end of the day, we do what we do, but we do need to spread the word. We've got the guild that's building and developing, but you know, to hear from your mouth, and as Trevor said earlier, from the other business owners' mouth, exactly how you've managed to move forward, grow and develop, but thanks to the relationship that you've got with that business finance professional, speaks volumes. And these are the words that we need to get other business owners somehow listening to and hearing, because unfortunately, I couldn't tell you what the numbers are, but I'm guessing a vast majority of business owners, when they're looking at business finance, as you said earlier, there's the bank. Yes, you could walk into the bank still these days. You might not get an appointment straight away, but there are some good bank guys and girls out there. In fact, I deal with some of them. But again, it's as you mentioned, I think you mentioned before, that hassle factor of having to go to the bank and then having to wait for the appointment. Again, so it's drawing that analogy with the GP perhaps at the moment, but you know, the hassle of trying to get through, but working with someone like Charlie, as you have done, to take that hassle away, you can carry on, as we said before, doing what you do on a daily basis. Let Charlie take the hassle away from you. You'll go and see the bank manager if he thinks the bank is the right fit. But ultimately, he'll be having conversations with other lenders, which you probably never heard of before, as of any other business owners, and they all come back to you with, here's a recommendation of how we should go forward. And that's it. You're done, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he's doing a lot of the legwork for me, and he's doing a lot of it behind closed doors that I don't hear about. Saying that, I probably speak to Charlie more than I speak to my wife, to be honest.
Neil, what we'd like to do, if you've got the time, is perhaps come back and see you again, maybe in a year's time. It'd be good to follow up on a lot of the podcasts that we do, because, you know, your growth is obviously going in a very exciting direction, as are other business owners that we work with. It's always nice just to keep in touch. So we'll, if you don't mind, drop you a little message in about a year's time, and hope and wish you well for the future, and everything that we do on this podcast. It's valuable. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Neil, one final thing for me. You follow the rugby?
Oh, go.
I do. I'm actually going to the Scotland Island.
I've got to go, guys. I've just got to go. So I've got a taxi for me here. England. England. So give me your predictions, boys, and we can then hopefully look back on them, and I'll either pat you on the back or I'll have a great laugh about it. So go on in. England, Scotland at Twickenham.
I'll go first. I will take Scotland by 10.
So what's the score? I want the score.
I'll go 26-16.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good
Come on, Neil.
guess.
Come on.
I think Scotland will get it, but tighter. I think something like 26-20, something along those.
Whoa.
Right. I've written that down. I'm going to put that on the.
And what have you gone for?
Okay, all right, fair enough. I'm going to go, of course, with a fairly convincing England victory. Again, I don't think it'll be a big gap.
Sorry, listeners.
I'm actually...
So he broke up there, Dave.
if the Scotsman could just let me talk for a minute. I think it's going to be, again, a tight game. I'm going to go 25-19 to England.
Okay, right. Okay, well, I've there cast in stone. Neil, listen, my friend, we better let you get back and get on with it. It's been an absolute delight and pleasure. Really, really enjoyed it. Well, it might not be a year. I'd like to think we might maybe do it sooner. But listen, we want to keep in touch. We'd like to keep in touch with you. It's a great success story, and may you have many more months and years of continued success. And well done for all that you're doing in your local and national economy. That's what touches my heart, my friend. The finance bit is important, but looking after humans, looking after their families, employing people, making sure they're well, helps keep you grounded, as you say. No pun intended, folks. And That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Love it. Love.
Thank you, Neil, very much indeed. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you in a year's time, and hopefully England will win the Calcutta Cup this year. Wishing you all the best. Take care now.
That's great. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Neil.
Excellent. Really, really enjoyed that, Trevor. Neil is obviously somebody that, as we've said during the interview with him, who can demonstrate not just that the business is going in the right direction, but thanks to Charlie Wilson at Asset and General Finance, member of the Guild, that business has gone from strength to strength. And Charlie's obviously played a really important part of that growth in terms of his finance knowledge, his professional support and partnership with the business, which is something we always talk about, isn't it? It's a partnership. It's not just a transaction here, there and everywhere. It's having that business owner talking to you about anything and everything, and to have that hassle taken away when finance is needed.
And do you know what, David, as we mentioned when we were speaking to Neil, the great thing is that's the third business owner we've had on, the third demonstration of the power and the importance of an alliance with a business finance professional.
Yeah, and I am passionate about what I do, hence why we do this podcast, Trevor. And I've never been more passionate than I am at this moment in time. And it's not all doom and gloom out there. Of course it's not. But the fact of the matter is that there are still too many business owners that are still needing, not just, as we keep on reminding everybody, not just access to finance, access to the best fit finance. We can't make it more clear, can we, Trevor?
No, and sometimes it's access to finance isn't the solution to what they need at that moment. We talk about, access to finance and best fit, and of course that's important, but sometimes finance or debt isn't necessarily the solution. Who's going to tell them that? They're going direct to a lender. That lender isn't going to say, sorry, pal, we don't actually, we can offer it to you, but we don't think it's right for you.
Yeah, as we know, there's good debt and there's bad debt. And unfortunately, there are situations where we talk to businesses either a bit too late in the day or they're just not ready for finance. And I know Charlie and other members of the Guild, that's the first thing that they will determine. Is this business fit for debt? Is it gonna be serviceable? Is it gonna be good debt? That's the initial due diligence that we all do before we move it forward.
And the human side again, isn't it? I'm just thinking as you're talking there, Dave, those three business owners, as I say, you with Joe, Hunky Dunky with Martin, and now Charlie with Neil, they've all become friends of the business. I mean, proper friends of the business and proper friends of the business owners.
But that's what the bank manager used to be, wasn't it? If you remember,
of course it was.
Maybe our parents' generation, but, the business owners, literally, their bank manager was at weddings, at the funerals.
Indeed. But listen, we are not going to stop and I like the word crusade. We've used this word before. We are determined to get this sorted. We are determined to do all we can. We are determined to get that signpost up to prevent business owners being exploited directly by the good and the bad of the lending industry because they're not getting the right guidance.
We'll keep on saying this, won't we, Trev, to it blue in the face. In fact, looking at you now, you are looking a bit blue in the face. Oh no, that's just a reflection of that Scottish flag in the background. Anyway,
cue the bagpipes.
I will never get bored, and I hope people don't get bored by me saying the following: that the biggest challenge in business finance isn't availability. There's plenty of people out there lending. It's the awareness. And you and I have banged on forever and a day about gaining access to finance through the Googles of this world, or some of the horrible social media online professing to be brokers or whatever you want to call them. That's just not how businesses should be gaining access. But there's no awareness. The awareness values out there are so poor, and there's nothing we can do. We already have a magic wand. We can only hope that with the help of people like the British Business Bank that we spoke about earlier, we met up with yesterday, with the help of other organisations that are linked into many small businesses, that they can get on board. I'm sure they're already on board with it. We just need to be doing more. We need to be more active.
Agreed.
We need to again, that signpost word. I know it's boring, and keep on going on about it.
Keep going on about it, man.
We want that
banging on.
We need that awareness.
Right, come on then, boys and girls. It's time we wrap this one up, and we leave you good folks to go and do whatever you need to do.
Yep. So those that are on dry January, cheers to you. Lots of Six Nations rugby, so I can't think of anything better to do. Go down the pub,
absolutely ratted, and congratulations, I'll get through dry January. Me, Trevor, I haven't stayed dry for January, and cheers.
Mate, goodbye from me.
This is goodbye from you. Cheers, mate. Bye.
See you, buddy.